in the bustling heart of Manhattan, where the neon glow of Times Square bled into the crisp autumn air of October 2025, the ABC studios hummed with the electric anticipation of another episode of The View. It was a Tuesday morning, the kind where the city awoke with a sigh, commuters clutching their steaming coffees like lifelines against the chill. Keanu Reeves, at 61, stepped out of his unassuming black SUV, his long dark coat fluttering slightly in the breeze, a faint smile playing on his lips as he nodded to the doorman. He wasn't one for fanfare. His life had long been a quiet rebellion against the Hollywood machine that chewed up stars and spat out scandals. Fresh off the promotional trail for The Guardian, Redemption, a gritty thriller that had already shattered box office records with its raw exploration of loss and quiet heroism, Keanu had agreed to this appearance out of a sense of duty. The View was pitched to his publicist as a light-hearted chat, a chance to discuss the film's themes of personal redemption without delving into the political quagmires that so often ensnared celebrities these days. He adjusted his simple gray tie, the fabric soft from years of wear, and thought of the subway ride he'd taken earlier that morning, sitting among strangers, invisible in his beanie and jeans, just another soul navigating the city's veins. Little did he know, as he was ushered through the labyrinthine corridors lined with faded posters of past guests, Oprah's triumphant grin, Tom Hanks' boyish mavia, that this would be no ordinary interview. In the green room, scented with fresh coffee and the faint tang of hairspray, Keanu sipped water from a paper cup, his eyes scanning a dog-eared script of talking points, John Wick nostalgia, motorcycle adventures, perhaps a nod to his private charity work with children's hospitals. He chuckled softly at a crew member's joke about dodging paparazzi, his laugh a low rumble like distant thunder. Across the studio, Joy Behar paced the host's lounge, her red blazer sharp as a blade, glasses perched on her nose like a weapon ready to fire. At 83, Joy was a titan of daytime TV, her career a tapestry woven from bold opinions and unfiltered zingers that had both built empires and burned bridges. She'd clawed her way from stand-up comedy to co-hosting a show that shaped morning routines for millions, her voice a clarion call against what she saw as the complacency of the elite. Lately, her segments had veered sharper, interrogating guests on everything from climate denial to voting records, turning the round table into a courtroom where silence was no defense. Keanu Reeves, with his apolitical aura and whispered acts of kindness of the $70 million donated anonymously to leukemia research after his sister's battle, the free meals handed out to film crews had become a quiet thorn in her side. To Joy, his reticence wasn't humility, it was evasion, a luxury the powerful could afford while the world burned. She'd prepared notes, scribbled in her looping handwriting, "Why no endorsement for the climate bill? Silent on Gaza? Your films glorify violence. Your thoughts on gun control?" The producer had waved them off with a nervous laugh, but Joy thrived on the edge, believing accountability was the show's soul. As the audience filed in, midwives from Brooklyn, teachers from Queens, a gaggle of retirees clutching John Wick mugs, the lights dimmed, then flared to life. Whoopi Goldberg cracked an opening joke about fall fashion fails, drawing easy laughs, while Sunny Hostin and Sarah Haynes bantered about pumpkin spice overload. Alyssa Farah Griffin, the conservative voice in the mix, shot Joy a wary glance, sensing the storm brewing. Then, the applause sign flashed furiously as Keanu was introduced, the one, the only, the man who makes us all believe in second chances. Keanu Reeves. He emerged from the wings, waving modestly, his presence filling the space like a calm sea after a squall. The crowd erupted, women finding themselves, men nodding in quiet admiration. Keanu settled into the guest chair, his posture relaxed yet alert, like a panther at rest. The banter started smoothly. Whoopi gushed over The Guardian's twist ending, Sunny asked about his stunt work, and even sorta got a chuckle from him with a quip about his eternal youth secret, the motor oil and humility. He deadpanned. Joy watched from her perch, fingers drumming the table, waiting for her moment. It came after the commercial break, as the segment pivoted to hot topics. The screen behind them flickered with headlines, election fervor, celebrity activism, a viral clip of Keanu giving his seat to an elderly fan at a premiere. "Keanu," Joy began, her tone honeyed with an undercurrent of steel, leaning forward as if sharing a secret. We all adore you at John Wick, Matrix. That heartbreaking guardian role where your character loses everything but finds grace. But let's talk real heroism. You've done so much quietly at donations, kindnesses that go unreported. Admirable, truly. But in this day and age, with the planet on fire, wars raging, inequality screaming from every corner, why stay silent? No public stance on the election, no megaphone for the causes you clearly care about. Is it fear, or just privilege? The studio hushed, the audience shifting uncomfortably, a few whispers rippling like wind through dry leaves. Keanu's expression didn't crack his eyes. Those deep pools of quiet intensity met hers without flinching. He set down his mug of untouched tea, the ceramic clinking softly against the saucer. "Joy," he said, his voice steady as bedrock, carrying that faint Canadian lilt that made every word feel earned. "I appreciate the question. Kindness isn't a performance. I've lost People's sister to cancer, friends to addiction, a child before she could breathe. Those losses taught me actions matter more than announcements. I give what I can, where it helps most, without cameras. Silence isn't complicity, it's space for others' voices. And politics, it's a battlefield. I'd rather build bridges than burn them." Joy's smile tightened, her co-hosts exchanging glances as Whoopi's eyebrow arched. Sora's hand hovered near her notes. Undeterred, Joy pressed, "But Keanu, that's the problem. Your silence lets the wrong voices dominate. Take the Guardiana glorifying vigilantes while real heroes beg for gun reform. And Gaza, millions displaced, and Hollywood's quiet. Are you neutral, or just neutral enough to stay bankable?" The audience murmured, a teacher in row 3 clutching her purse tighter. Keanu leaned back, not in retreat but in reflection, his fingers interlacing like roots seeking soil. "Neutral? Number. I'm human. I grieve for Gaza, for Ukraine, for every child caught in crossfire, but I don't presume my opinion fixes it. I've funded the water purifiers for refugees, therapy for trauma survivors through channels that deliver, not distract. As for guns, my films are stories, not manifestos. They explore pain, not endorse it. If my work sparks one conversation that saves a life, that's enough. But demanding I perform outrage, that's not dialogue, that's a script I didn't sign up for." Joy's laugh was sharp, a blade unsheathed. "Oh, come on, Keanu. This isn't the 90s. Stars like you have power, use it. Or are you afraid of alienating fans? The brothers who love your action flicks but vote against their own interests?" The jab landed like a slap, the audience gasping softly. A few claps from the back rows where diehards sat. Whoopi interjected gently, "Joy, let's keep it light," but the damage was done. Keanu's jaw set, not in anger but resolve, his eyes scanning the crowd of the wide-eyed kid in the front row, the nurse stabbing tears during his film talk. He rose slowly, buttoning his jacket with deliberate grace. "Joy, I've respected this table for years. You speak truth to power, and that's brave. But respect goes both ways. I'm here for my film, for connection, not conversion. If my quiet disappoints you, that's yours to carry. I'm done with games that turn people into pawns." The studio froze, time stretching like taffy. Joy's face flushed, her retort dying on her lips as Keanu extended a hand not in challenge, but farewell. "Thank you all," he said to the hosts, then to the audience, "for letting stories like The Guardian into your lives. Be kind out there. It's harder than it looks." With that, he walked off stage, the door swinging shut behind him like a period at the end of a sentence. The audience erupted not in boos, but applause, thunderous and raw, as if the room itself exhaled. Joy sat stunned, her notes crumpling in her fist, the co-hosts scrambling to pivot to weather. Backstage, Keanu paused only to hug a teary-eyed Pa who'd lost her brother to gun violence, whispering, "You're the Guardian." By noon, clips flooded social media. Keanu walks out trending worldwide. Memes of his exit stride captioned, "When you choose peace over performance." Joy's humiliation wasn't in the walkout, but in the mirror it held up her zeal, once a shield, now a spotlight on its own excesses. As the show wrapped, she stared at the empty guest chair, wondering if accountability started at home. Character count, 2,987, 6 months later, under the golden haze of a Los Angeles spring in 2026, the Academy Awards unfolded like a dream woven from stardust and spotlights. The Dolby Theatre, a cathedral to cinema's gods. Keanu Reeves, nominated for Best Actor in The Guardian, Redemption, glided down the red carpet in a tailored black tuxedo, his hair tousled just so, a single white rose at his lapel for his late sister. The paparazzi frenzy was muted for him and no entourage, just a nod to interviewers, his answers brief and warm, grateful, humbled. Let's celebrate the storytellers. Whispers of the View incident lingered like smoke from a distant fire. It had become legend, dissected in podcasts from The Daily to Armchair Expert, where Dax Shepard called it the Mic drop of dignity. Joy Behar, watching from her Manhattan brownstone, sipped chamomile tea, her remote clutched like a grudge. The walkout had cost The View sponsors a wave of backlash from fans decrying gotcha journalism, and her own reflections, aired in a rare vulnerable segment, admitted the line between probe and ambush. Keanu reminded me, questions should invite, not indict, she'd said, earning reluctant nods from Whoopi. Now, as Ellen DeGeneres cracked jokes from the stage, the nominees reel played, gritty close-ups of Keanu's character, a broken ex-cop clawing back from despair, his eyes mirroring the actor's own veiled sorrows. When his name echoed through the hall of Keanu Reeves, The Guardian, Redemption. The ovations swelled, a tidal wave crashing over the seats, stars like Zendaya and Ryan Gosling rising first, their applause a silent vindication. Keanu ascended the steps, Emma Stone handing him the Oscar with a hug that lingered, her whisper lost in the roar. At the podium, bathed in that ethereal light, he paused, the statuette heavy in his hands like an anchor to reality. This, he began, voice cracking just enough to humanize the icon, isn't mine alone. It's for the guardians of the nurses pulling bubbles in hers, the teachers fighting for one more kid's light bulb moment, the parents stitching families together on frayed threads. You don't need a stage, you build worlds every day. The crowd leaned in, phones forgotten, as he continued, I lost my way once, thought fame fixed fractures, but The Guardian taught me, redemption isn't loud, it's showing up, holding space, walking away when the script sours. To Joy and the View team, a thank you for the mirror. Discomfort forges us. And to every quiet warrior watching, your silence isn't empty, it's sacred. Tears streaked faces in the audience. A collective breath held and released in cheers that shook the rafters. Backstage, interviews buzzed. Did the walkout fuel the swing? A reporter asked. Keanu smiled faintly. Winds aren't fuel, they're echoes. I just tried to listen. Meanwhile, in New York, Joy tuned in, the screen flickering across her living room walls adorned with framed View memorabilia. The humiliation of that October morning had softened into something like growth. A new segment on her show called Grace Notes, featuring unsung heroes without the hot seat glare. She'd even sent Keanu a handwritten note. You stood your ground, I found mine. Bravo to us both. His reply, delivered via courier, was simple. A signed John Wick poster with kindness is the ultimate action hero. As the night waned, after parties pulsing with champagne toasts, Keanu slipped away to a quiet diner off Sunset, nursing a milkshake with the script in hand for his next project, a dramedy about unlikely friendships in a divided world. The Oscar sat on the passenger seat of his vintage motorcycle, wrapped in a napkin to avoid scratches. He'd ride home through the canyons, wind whipping his coat, the city's lights blurring into stars. The story of that View clash had rippled outward, inspiring think pieces in The Atlantic on celebrity activism's pitfalls, viral threads on Reddit dissecting quiet power in the Trump-Biden rerun era, even school assemblies using clips to teach kids about boundaries. Joy, too, evolved. Her book deal shifted from rants to reflections, titled Unfiltered Grace, When Questions Meet Quiet. In coffee shops from Seattle to Sydney, strangers swapped tales. Saw Keanu give his trailer to a sick extray. A guy's real. The world, weary of performative piety, latched onto his actions as activism, dignity as defiance. And in quiet moments, like Keanu pausing on his bike to watch the sunrise gild the Hollywood Hills, or Joy journaling by her window overlooking Central Park's awakening leaves, they both knew humiliation wasn't the end, but the hinge. It swung open doors to authenticity, reminding a fractured culture that standing ground didn't mean standing alone. It meant standing true, and in that truth, finding the strength to lift others. The roar of applause from months past faded, but its echo lingered, a gentle reminder that sometimes, the bravest exit is the one that leads everyone forward.